Hello, my dear students. Form 3, first term, English Literature. Poem number 2, The Poison Tree by William Blake. Before proceeding the lesson, let's move on to the objectives of the poem. At the end of the lesson, students will be able to get to know about the background of the poet, explore the literal meaning of the poem, identify the main theme of the poem, express the critical analysis of the poem, understand the structure, language, and the other poetic techniques of the poem. Now let's pay our attention about the background of the poet. William Blake was born in 28 November in 1757. He was died in 12th August in 1827. He was a poet, painter, and a printmaker. William Blake can be introduced as a romantic poet in Romanticism. Some of his notable works are Songs of Innocence and of Experience, The Marriage of Heaven and Hell. And also, William Blake was influenced by the ideals and ambitions of the French and American Revolution. On this slide, my purpose is to give you a further clarification about the poet. So when we learn about William Blake, it's important to learn about Romanticism because William Blake is a romantic poet. So it's important to know about Romanticism to get a better clarification about the poet as well. So in this poem, The Poison Tree, also we can find some features of his Romanticism work, because we can see some beautiful visual imagery and very nice words and language that he has used to create the poem nicely. So let's focus on what is Romanticism. William Blake is a romantic poet. The sparks of Romanticism are vividly marked on his poetry. The question arises, what is Romanticism? The answer is that it is a phenomenon characterized by depends on the imagination and subjectivity of approach, freedom of thoughts and expression, and an idealization of nature. So as the basic themes of Romanticism, the basic features, we can see them like idealizing of nature. So it is one of the features of Romanticism. Idealization of nature, and also freedom, using freedom of thought and expression. The poet can use his thoughts and expressions very freely. They have the freedom for that. And also the imagination, the basic feature, the imagination and subjectivity of approach. So they can use very beautiful imagery things, visual imagery and beautiful sceneries. They can include them into their poems. And also, it is established that Blake is a romantic poet. Blake is one of the major romantic poets whose verse and artwork became part of the wider movement of Romanticism in late 18th and early 19th century European culture. His writing combines a variety of styles. He is once an artist, a lyric poet, a mystic and a visionary, and his work has fascinated, intrigued, and sometimes bewildered readers ever since. For the 19th century, Reader Blake's work posed a single question: was he sane or mad? The poet Wordsworth, for example, commented that there is no doubt that this poor man was mad, but there is something in his madness which interests me more than the sanity of Lord Byron and Walter Scott. Blake's use of images, symbols, metaphors, and revolutionary spirit combined with simple diction and spontaneous expression of thoughts and emotions make him a typical romantic poet. So here we can understand that one of William Blake's readers has asked that, was William Blake say nomad? So the poet Wordsworth, William Wordsworth, he gave a nice answer for that. He said that there is no doubt that this poor man was mad. So, but there is something in his madness, and that madness interests him more than anything. And also we can understand that William Blake is a talented poet who can use visual imageries and symbols, metaphors with very simple diction. So using simple diction, he can create these things very nicely and creatively than all of the other romantic poets. That's why he is that much famous in European culture also. And also when he uses simple diction, it's a benefit for the uneducated people. That means ordinary people also, they can read them. If he uses like this simple diction, normally when it comes to literature, some advanced language is there, literal language there, but in the poem also today we are going to learn the Poison Tree. He has used very simple diction, very simple language to build up the poem. So that is one of his best talented features in Romanticism. Okay students, let's go through the poem. I was angry with my friend. I told my wrath did end. I was angry with my foe. I told it not, my wrath did grow. And I watered it in fears, night and morning with my tears. And I sunned it with mild and with soft deceitful wiles. And it grew both day and night, till it bore an apple bright. And my foe beheld it shine, and he knew that it was mine. And into my garden stole, when the night had veiled the pole. In the morning glad I see my foe outstretched beneath the tree. Before proceeding, on this slide I have given you the definitions of the difficult words that we came across. So here on this slide, the glossary you can see. So let's go on. Wrath, extreme anger. Foe, a personal enemy. Deceitful, misleading others. Vile, the use of tricks to deceive someone. Bear, bring forth. Behold, see with attention. Stall, move steadily. Veiled, covered. Pole, North Pole or North Star. Last one, outstretched, stretch out. Okay students, let's go through the analysis of the poem. First of all, let's go on from line 1 to line 4. You can read with me the lines. I was angry with my friend. I told my wrath did end. I was angry with my foe. I told it not, my wrath did grow. So you already now know what is wrath and what is foe. In our glossary section, we clarified the meanings of it. So let's go through the analysis. The first quatrain finds the speaker explaining that he experienced a disagreement with a friend over some issue, which made him angry. He told his friend that he was angry, and his anger disappeared. The speaker describes about a different scenario in the third line. He was once angry with his foe means enemy, but didn't tell him about it. Since the speaker did not talk about his anger grew bigger and bigger. So if I explain this, we can clearly see that in the first two lines, the speaker was angry with his friend, but later he told his friend that he was angry with him. And after telling that, what happened to his anger? It just vanished, disappeared, because he told, he spoken out. But what happened in next two lines? Then he was angry with his foe, with his enemy. So there, did he tell about it to enemy that he was angry with him? No, he didn't tell. He kept this anger inside his heart. So he didn't tell to his foe that I am angry with you like that. So what happened as a result? His anger grew bigger and bigger. Lines 5 to 8. And I watered it in fears, night and morning with my tears. And I sunned it with smiles and with soft deceitful wiles. The speaker talks more about how his anger grows using figurative language. He treats his anger very much like a plant. So we can see here a metaphor. So his anger is, he has used this as a plant. His anger means he has used the word plant to compare it. Actually here it is not comparing, we have to use this as a metaphor. A plant needs water and sun in order to grow from morning to night. And so apparently just his anger. He watered it. It means his anger. He watered his anger with tears and made sure it got plenty of sunshine. He tricks his enemy to bring him closer to him. Outwardly, he smiled and was friendly to gain his trust. So here we can understand that in the seventh line, the poet is expressing that, and I sunned it with smiles. To grow a plant needs water and also sunshine. So here water means his tears, William Blake's tears. And here the sunshine is, he sunned it with his smile. The sunshine is a smile. So he has very nicely used this language. When we are reading this, we can feel so impressed of his language. Lines 9 to 12. And it grew both day and night, till it bore an apple bright. And my foe beheld it shine, and he knew that it was mine. Because of the speaker's efforts, his plant, here plant means his anger, eventually bears fruit. What is the fruit? An apple bright. The enemy sees the fruit of the speaker's wrath, and somehow he is able to recognize that the apple belongs to the speaker. Lines 13 to 16. And into my garden stole, when the night had veiled the pole, in the morning glad I see my foe outstretched beneath the tree. Apparently, at some point in the dark night, the enemy eats the apple, which ends up killing him. The speaker was happy that his enemy was lying dead under the poison tree. His death gives immense pleasure to the speaker. A Poison Tree by William Blake is a central metaphor, explains a truth of human nature. The opening stanza sets up everything for the entire poem, from the ending of anger with the friend to the continuing anger with the foe. Blake startles the reader with the clarity of the poem and with metaphors that can apply to many instances of life. Blake also uses several forms of figurative language. He works with a simple AABB rhyme scheme to keep his poem flowing. These ideals allow him to better express himself in terms that a reader can truly understand. These forms of language better help authors to express their feelings and thoughts that would not normally be able to be expressed by words. To understand the metaphorical sense of the poem, one must first examine the title, The Poison Tree, which alerts the reader that some type of metaphor will stand to dominate the poem. In the second stanza, Blake employs several metaphors that reflects the growing and nurturing of a tree, which compares to the feeding of hate and vanity explored by the speaker. The verses, "And I watered it with my tears," show how the tears' life led an object of destruction. The speaker goes further to say, "And I sunned it with smiles," describing not only false intentions but the processing of sunning, giving nutrients to a plant so that it may not only grow and live but flourished. In both of these metaphors, the basic elements for a tree to survive, water and sunlight, are shown in the human despair and sadness. Blake's poetry, while easy to understand and simplistic, usually implies a moral motive on an almost basic level. The powerful figurative language in The Poison Tree is so apparent that it brings forth an apparent message as well. The poem is not a celebration of wrath, rather it is Blake's cry against it. Through this, Blake warns the reader of the dangers of repression and of rejoicing in the sorrow of our foes. Now let's go through the summary. The Poison Tree is a poem by English poet William Blake, first published in his Songs of Experience in 1794. In deceptively simple language with an almost nursery rhyme quality, the speaker of the poem details two different approaches to anger. In the first, openly talking about anger is presented as a way of moving past it. In the second, the speaker outlines the danger of keeping anger within. The poem uses an extended metaphor to describe the speaker's anger as growing into a tree that bears poisonous apples. The speaker's enemy then eats an apple from the tree and dies. The poem is generally interpreted as an allegory for the danger of bottling up emotions, and how doing so leads to a cycle of negativity and even violence. Okay, now let's move on to the poetic techniques of the poem The Poisonous Tree. Let's focus on the theme. So the main themes are hatred, anger and revenge. So I have given you some key points to read and get a better understanding of the theme. The speaker is corrupted by evil feeling of anger, hatred and malice. We must conquer these evil passions and must not nourish anger and hatred against friends and foes. In friendship, when we have a misunderstanding, we should not let our anger grow. we should talk about our ill feelings and discuss why the misunderstanding happened. So always remember that forgive and forget equals to peace of mind. If we bottle up our anger, it grows into a poison tree which is harmful to us and also for those around us. When a person is nourished with evil thoughts and feelings from young, he will grow up to be violent and full of misdemeanors. Let's pay attention for the symbolism. So we can see several symbols that William Blake has used to give a creativity to the poem. As the first one, a growing plant. It is a symbol of life. The poison tree symbolizes hatred. The apple symbolizes the anger growing large and ripening. The apple refers to the apple in the biblical story of the Garden of Eden. Garden symbolizes the heart where the hatred is nurtured. The night symbolizes the evil. So here we can understand that the enemy of the poet also enters to the garden during night. So it gives the feeling of some kind of evil background. So the night symbolizes evil. And also after eating the bright apple on the poisonous tree, what happened to the foe? What happened to the enemy? He died. He laid dead under the poison tree. So here the night, that word gives the evil background to the poem at the end. So here in the symbols we can find out that the apple symbolizes the anger growing large and ripening. So when it comes to the story of Bible, we can find that the story of the Garden of Eden, what happened to them after eating the apple. So like that, he has used some religious features also to create the poem very nicely, and some historical elements also has taken and to make the poem creatively. Number 3, alliteration. What is alliteration? Alliteration means the repetition of consonant sound. So here we can see wrath, the repetition of sound were in first line. And also sunt it with smiles. Sunt it with smiles. 7th line you can see the repetition of s sound. Allusion. It is a belief and an indirect reference of a person, place, thing or idea of a historical or literary significance. So here we can see, for an example, garden, apple and tree. They are the illusions of Adam and Eve and the Garden of Eden. So as I told you earlier when we are discussing symbols, so William Blake has used this allusion by bringing out the story of Adam, Eve and the Garden of Eden using the apple. Garden, apple and tree. 3 of those gives the meaning of allusion. It's one of the techniques that William Blake has used. And also visual imagery. For example, I have given you, till it bore an apple bright. We can visualize the apple bright. My foe outstretched beneath the tree. We can take them as the examples for visual imagery. Number 6 is structure, very important. You can see the stanza form with 4 quatrains. So a quatrain means 4-lined stanza. You can see it is in stanza form with 4 quatrains. That means 16 lines are there. Rhyming scheme is AABB. Rhyming words are, so I have given some of the rhyming words. You can find the rest very easily. Friend, end, foregrow, fears, tears, smiles, whiles. So it continues. Okay students, these are the questions that you have to answer. First one, who is the poet in the poem The Poison Tree? What emotion is expressed in stanza 1? In stanza 1, what happened to the speaker when he did not express his anger? In stanza 2, how did the speaker allow his anger to grow? What happened to the speaker's foe eventually, and how did the speaker react to this? So what happened to the speaker at the end? What happened to the speaker's foe and how did the speaker react to this? It's in the last quatrain, you can find it. Number 6, what would you do if you had a misunderstanding with your enemy? Suggest 2 ways. If you were the speaker, would you have been glad to see your foe outstretched beneath the tree? Give a reason to support your answer. If you were the speaker's friend, what advice would you give to him? What are the poetic techniques that poet has used to build up the poem creatively? The last one, describe the morale of the poem using 50 words. So, very first ones I have given you some short answer questions. You can give some short answers. But for the from number 6 to number 10, you can describe it. When the question asks you the reasons and the suggestions, so you have to explain them nicely, okay? And the last one, for the last one, you have to use 50 words to describe the morale of the poem. Okay students, that's the end of our lesson. I hope you all enjoyed the poem. So study well and have a nice day.